It began like any other morning on Good Morning America.
Robin Roberts sat at her desk, a practiced smile on her face and her notes neatly arranged. Across from her, Johnny Depp slumped in a leather chair, his signature hat tilted as always. At that moment, no one knew how this harmless show would end. It would surely be the biggest scandal of the year. Subscribe to our channel. It will help me fulfill my dream of reaching 1,000 subscribers.
Now let's move on to the video.
Johnny, it's great to have you here, Robin said, her voice warm but measured, like a friend who knows too much.
It's been a while since we've seen you in this chair.
He leaned back, a faint smirk curling his lips. Yeah, well, I don't get out much these days, Robin. His tone was light, but there was an edge, a flicker of something that didn't match the morning show polish.
The audience chuckled, cued by the rhythm of the exchange.
Robin tilted her head, her earrings catching the light.
You've been busy, though. New film, new music. You're always reinventing, aren't you?
Johnny's smirk tightened, his fingers pausing mid-tap.
Reinventing. That's a nice way to put it.
He glanced at the camera, just for a second, like he was checking if it was still watching. The air in the studio felt heavier than it should, despite the bright lights and the soft hum of the air conditioner. Robin flipped a page in her notes, her smile unwavering.
Let's talk about the Libertines' fall.
It's a bold role for you, playing a man who's lost everything but still fights for his name.
Did you pull from personal experience there? Johnny's jaw twitched, almost imperceptibly.
He crossed one leg over the other, the heel of his boot scraping the floor.
Every role's personal, Robin.
You don't play a guy like that without digging into your own dirt. His voice was low, almost lazy, but the words landed like stones. Robin nodded, her eyes locked on his.
You've always been open about your struggles. The public loves that about you, the honesty. But it's a tricky line, isn't it? Being honest without giving too much away. The audience shifted, a ripple of attention. Johnny's fingers resumed their tapping, faster now. Tricky's one word for it.
He leaned forward slightly, his glasses slipping down his nose.
You ever notice how people love honesty until it's too honest? Then they just want you to shut up. A murmur from the audience, half laughter, half unease. Robin's smile didn't falter, but her eyes narrowed, just a fraction.
Well, you've never been one to shut up, Johnny.
That's why people are still talking about you. He let out a short laugh, more breath than sound. Yeah. Talking. That's what they do best.
The conversation rolled on, each question from Robin a careful step, each answer from Johnny a sidestep or a jab. The studio lights seemed to sharpen, carving shadows across his face. A producer in the corner adjusted her headset, her eyes darting between the two. The audience was quieter now, sensing the shift, the way the air tightens before a storm. Robin leaned back, crossing her arms. You've been through a lot these past few years.
The lawsuits, the headlines. You've said you wanted to move past it, but the world keeps bringing it up. How do you deal with that noise?
Johnny's fingers stopped tapping. He tilted his head, studying her like she'd just thrown a punch she didn't expect. Noise, he repeated, rolling the word around like it tasted bitter.
You know what's funny about noise, Robin? It's loudest when you're trying to sleep.
She raised an eyebrow, her pen hovering over her notes.
So you're saying you're trying to find peace?
I'm saying I'm trying to live. His voice was steady, but there was a crack in it, a hairline fracture. He shifted in his seat, his boots scuffing the floor again.
But people like their stories, don't they? Doesn't matter if they're true.
Robin paused, letting the silence stretch just a beat too long.
The camera lingered on her face, then his. The audience held its breath.
You think the stories about you aren't true? She asked, her tone soft but pointed, like a surgeon's scalpel.
Johnny's smirk returned, but it was colder now. More like a grimace. Some are. Some aren't. Problem is, nobody cares which is which.
The interview pressed forward, but the rhythm had changed. Robin's questions grew sharper, her smile a little tighter. Johnny's answers were shorter, his words clipped, like he was rationing them.
The audience could feel it, the invisible thread pulling taut.
A stagehand adjusted a light, and the beam caught Johnny's glasses, making them flash like a warning.
Let's talk about redemption, Robin said, her voice smooth but deliberate. You've said you don't believe in it, but your fans, they see you as someone who's fought his way back. Is that how you see it? Johnny's eyes flicked to the audience, then back to her.
He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, his rings glinting under the lights.
Redemption's a nice word, Robin. Sounds good on a poster. But you don't fight your way back to anything. You just keep moving, and hope the world doesn't bury you first.
She tilted her head, her expression unreadable. That sounds like a man who's still carrying a lot.
He let out a breath, almost a laugh, but there was no humor in it. Who isn't?
The camera zoomed in, catching the way his fingers curled into his palm, the way her pen tapped once, twice, against her notes. The audience was silent now, every cough and shuffle swallowed by the weight of the moment. Robin shifted gears, her voice brightening, but it felt forced, like sunlight breaking through a storm cloud.
Let's lighten things up. You've got a new album coming out. Music's always been a big part of your life. Tell us about that creative process. Johnny didn't answer right away.
He leaned back, his eyes narrowing as if he was trying to find the trick in her words. Music's honest, he said finally.
You can't fake a note. Not like you can fake a smile.
His gaze flicked to her, then away, landing on the camera again.
It felt like an accusation.
Robin's smile held, but her fingers tightened around her pen.
You're saying acting's less honest than music?
I'm saying people believe what they want to believe. His voice was low, almost a growl.
You give them a song, they hear the truth. You give them a story, they pick the parts they like. The audience stirred, a low hum of reaction.
Robin leaned forward, her eyes locked on his.
And what parts of your story do you think they've picked, Johnny? He didn't blink. The ones that sell.
The studio felt smaller now, the walls closing in under the glare of the lights. Robin's next question came softer, almost gentle, but it carried a weight that made the air feel electric.
You've always been private about your family. Your kids, your life outside the spotlight. But people are curious. They want to know the man behind the myth. What do you say to that? Johnny's face changed.
It wasn't a flinch, not exactly, but something shifted, his shoulders stiffened, his jaw tightened, his eyes darkened behind the tinted lenses. He sat up straighter, his hands resting on the arms of the chair like he was bracing himself. My kids, he said slowly, each word deliberate, are not a story.
They're not for sale.
The silence that followed was deafening. The camera held on his face, catching the way his lips pressed into a thin line. Robin didn't move, didn't speak, but her eyes stayed on him, steady and unyielding. The audience was frozen, every pair of eyes locked on the two of them. A producer in the corner whispered something into her headset, but no one else dared make a sound. Robin broke the silence first, her voice soft but firm.
I understand. Let's move on.
But the energy in the room had shifted, like a glass that had cracked but not yet shattered. The interview wasn't over, but something had broken, something that couldn't be undone. The studio lights burned hotter, or maybe it just felt that way. Johnny Depp sat rigid in his chair, his fingers no longer tapping, now curled tightly around the armrests. Robin Roberts leaned forward, her notes untouched, her eyes fixed on him like a chess player studying the board. The audience was a sea of held breaths, their silence louder than any applause. The camera, unblinking, hovered like a third presence. Its lens catching every microshift in Johnny's face, the tightening of his jaw, the faint sheen of sweat at his temple. Robin's voice cut through the quiet, steady but sharp.
Johnny, let's talk about legacy.
You've built an incredible career, iconic roles, music, art.
But when the cameras stop rolling, what do you want people to remember about you? He didn't answer right away.
His eyes flicked to the side, then back to her, dark and unreadable behind his glasses. Nothing, he said finally, his voice low, almost a whisper.
I don't care what they remember. I'm not here for their scrapbooks.
The words landed like a slap.
Robin's smile flickered, just for a second, before she recovered.
That's a bold stance, she said, her tone still warm but laced with something harder.
Most people in your position want to control the narrative. Shape how they're seen.
Johnny's lips twitched, not quite a smile.
Control's an illusion, Robin. You think you've got it, then someone writes a headline, and poof, he snapped his fingers, the sound sharp in the quiet studio. It's gone. The audience stirred, a ripple of unease.
A woman in the front row shifted in her seat, her eyes darting between Johnny and Robin. The camera panned slightly, catching the tension in Robin's posture, the way her pen hovered over her notes like a weapon she hadn't decided to use. Robin tilted her head, her voice softening, but it was the softness of a blade sliding into a sheath.
You've been through a lot of headlines, Johnny.
The trials, the accusations.
You've said you've moved on, but have you? Really? The air in the studio thickened.
Johnny's face didn't change, but his hands tightened on the armrests, the silver rings glinting like warning lights. Moved on, he repeated, tasting the words.
That's what people want to hear, isn't it? He's fine now. He's healed. Like it's a movie with a neat little ending. Robin didn't blink. And it's not? He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a growl. Life doesn't get a director's cut, Robin. You don't get to edit out the parts you don't like.
His eyes locked on hers, unyielding.
You just live with the mess.
The camera zoomed in, catching the way his glasses slipped slightly, revealing the fire in his gaze. Robin held his stare, her expression calm but her fingers curling tighter around her pen.
So you're saying the mess is still there? Johnny's laugh was short, bitter. Isn't it for everybody?
The audience was silent, but the energy in the room crackled. A producer in the corner whispered urgently into her headset, her eyes wide. The stagehand adjusted a light, and the beam shifted, casting a shadow across Johnny's face, making him look sharper, almost feral.
Robin pressed on, her voice steady but relentless. You've always been a private man, but the world doesn't let you stay private. The lawsuits, the public battles, they've shaped how people see you. Do you ever wish you could go back, do things differently?
Johnny's head tilted, his eyes narrowing.
You're asking if I regret being me?
His tone was light, but the undercurrent was raw, like a wound torn open. He leaned back, spreading his arms slightly, as if daring her to keep going.
What's the point of regret? You play the hand you're dealt. Robin didn't flinch. But some hands are harder than others. You've said the truth matters to you. What's the truth about Johnny Depp, right now, in this moment?
The question hung in the air, heavy and dangerous. Johnny's fingers twitched, his rings catching the light again. He took a slow breath, his chest rising and falling like he was bracing for impact. The truth, he said, his voice low and deliberate, is I'm tired. Tired of the questions, the cameras, the stories.
Tired of people thinking they know me because they read a headline or saw a movie.
Robin's eyes softened, but her voice didn't.
And yet you're here, Johnny. Sitting in this chair, talking to me. Why?
He froze. For the first time, his smirk vanished completely. His hands dropped to his lap, and he stared at her, the silence stretching into something almost unbearable. The camera lingered on his face, catching the way his lips parted. Then closed, as if he'd almost said something he couldn't take back.
Because I'm an idiot, he said finally, his voice barely above a whisper. The audience gasped, a collective inhale that broke the spell.
He leaned forward, his elbows on his knees, his glasses slipping further down his nose.
Or maybe because I still think someone out there might listen.
Robin's pen stopped moving. She set it down, her hands folding neatly in front of her.
And what do you want them to hear?
He looked at her, really looked at her, for the first time all morning. That I'm human, he said, his voice raw, almost breaking.
That I bleed like everybody else.
The studio was a vacuum, the silence so thick it felt like it could choke.
The camera didn't move, didn't dare.
Robin's face was unreadable, but her eyes held his, steady and unflinching. The audience was frozen, every pair of eyes locked on the two of them, waiting for the next move.
Then Johnny stood.
The movement was sudden, his chair scraping against the floor. He adjusted his fedora, his fingers trembling just slightly, and turned toward the exit.
"I think we're done here," he said, his voice quiet but final. Robin didn't stop him.
She watched as he walked off the set, his boots echoing in the silent studio. The camera followed him, catching the way his shoulders slumped as he passed the stagehand, the way his hand brushed against the curtain before he disappeared.
The lights didn't dim. The audience didn't clap.
Robin sat still, her hands folded, her eyes on the empty chair.
"We'll be right back," she said finally, her voice steady but softer than before.
The camera cut to commercial, but the weight of the moment lingered, heavy as smoke.
By noon, the internet was ablaze.
Clips of the interview flooded X, each one dissected, memed, debated. Johnny Depp walks off GMA trended worldwide, alongside hashtags like #TruthHurts and #Robin vs. Johnny. Pundits argued over whether he'd snapped or staged it, whether Robin had pushed too hard or not hard enough. Fans posted tearful defenses, critics called it a meltdown. A grainy screenshot of Johnny's face, raw, unguarded, mid-sentence, became a viral avatar, captioned with quotes that weren't even his. In the studio, the crew packed up in silence. Robin sat at her desk, her notes untouched, staring at the empty chair. A producer approached, hesitated, then walked away. The lights finally dimmed, the hum of the air conditioner fading to nothing.
Outside, the world kept talking.
But in that moment, in the quiet of the empty set, there was only one truth: Johnny had walked away, and the silence he left behind spoke louder than anything he'd said.